Beat it, nerd. I'm gonna get fucked up by this goddamn hornet. Take two. Yeah, I know. Worst case scenario, I'm gonna get drunk as shit sitting here. Let's see if Andrew will join now. Okay. View request. Oi.
Hey man, I'm back.
You're back.
We are.
And you're the right way up.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, first day. I was bored yesterday, but I've been up all fucking night studying, so we'll figure it
There you
out.
go. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. What you been up to?
Oh, living life. So for those who are joining slowly, Andrew, why don't you go ahead and give yourself an introduction?
Man, guys, thank y'all. I appreciate you bearing with me here. Um, my name is Andrew Brady. I own a company called Lone Star Armory. We have been building, manufacturing gas guns. Primarily, we do bolt gun work, polymer pistol work, suppressor sales, a little bit of training here and there since 2006. So, man, I'm pleased to be here again. Thank y'all. It's cool to hang out with Joe, man. We're a little apart right now, but man, this is nice. So, I've been keeping up with your
Dude,
new place, man. I like your range. So,
dude, I love this place. I started doing these, and I tend to be probably the hardest critic of guys who with guys who have backgrounds like mine. But I think, I started doing these little talks because COVID was up and nobody could really go anywhere, and we didn't have SHOT Show and last year, and I didn't want to just get on another video with a bunch of another soft dude and just tell war stories. And that's what I feel like every damn podcast seems to be. And so I thought about all the people that I know who are in the gun industry, who are serious trainers, representatives of the Second Amendment, business owners from a variety of backgrounds that are friends of mine. And that I thought it'd be cool just to reconnect with. Obviously, long before everything's open back up for the most part now. But so I started doing these, and they've been fun, and people have enjoyed them. So for those of you who came from Lone Star's page and are jumping in with this, I'm Joe Dawson. I'm the bearded half. Well, I guess JR is bearded now, so I'm the bigger half of Bruiser Industries. Did 14 years in the SEAL teams, and now medically retired, and now I'm sitting with. I work with JR, who is the other half of our equation, who's a retired LAPD SWAT guy. So the two of us make up this company, and I work with Andrew and Lone Star, and we came out with the carbine last year. We started talking about it.
yeah, early last year, I think. So,
and so as we started getting this company off the ground, I'm a loyalty-based person, and wanted to kind of work with somebody who I believed in their product, and I knew kind of shared some of my mindset of building hard use shit, kind of cost be damned almost. And so Andrew was a good fit, and you guys really put a lot out there as far as the competitive shooting market and backing, competitions and shooters. And obviously, you guys, I think when I first started seeing what you guys were doing, it was with Marcus. He took that AR-10 off the prize table and gave it to one of my guys that I brought to one of the Can-Am matches. And I was like, these guys are all right. Thus began the relationship. So I'm happy you jumped on. I thought I haven't had anybody on here that really builds ARs yet. And so I thought you'd be a good person to kind of talk through and get some information, and people could ask questions about building ARs and what makes them run. And they tend to be the Legos of the gun industry, and people can build them, but there's a lot of people who fail miserably at it. And So I thought you'd be a good point of reference to get on here for an hour or so.
Yeah, man. I think, kind of our approach, and I've talked about this, before with various people. Um, but the neat thing about the AR platform is that it is very user friendly. You can do a lot with a little. You don't need to be a machinist to build one up if you're ordering parts. But where, we see a lot of guys run into issues is just mainly attention to detail oriented things. Or they don't have the right gauges. And there's some stuff that's pretty critical. But most of the time, yeah, you can skate by, you know. And most of the guys that are just worried about skating by, they're not shooting enough for it to usually reach some sort of failure point to them that is unacceptable. And so, if they don't have high standards, they're never going to, really kind of reach and see the shortcomings of what they have. So we approach this from first off a reliability standpoint. And then after we look at that, then we approach it from an accuracy standpoint. And accuracy is subjective. There's accuracy requirements for this guy that are different from this guy over here. And it can be built to a price point around that. Then we're going to look at things like ergonomics, durability, longevity of the system, and then the versatility of it. So while we might build a rifle for a guy that's going to go, varmint hunt, or it might be a 3-gun rifle, specifically, at the end of the day, that gun is still going to be good at virtually everything else you would ever need a carbine to do. And so I like, guys that are putting, a lot of guys are like, oh, I've got this huge gun collection. I've got 100 guns, whatever, but how many do they really shoot? Man, get 1 or 2, 3 tools that fill your needs and use them, man. Like, figure them out, max them out, and train with that. Spend your time and effort there, versus just collecting. I get on my soapbox sometimes, man. I feel like, America, unfortunately, is a culture of not shooters, but collectors and firearm owners. And I want to just encourage and educate, people, man, get some training. Like, there is so much more you could do with that firearm if you just had a 2 or 3 day class and then stuck with a little bit of dry fire and training on your own. You can do things with that gun you never thought possible, and so the only way we can ever see that through is you can't make a law about it. It's just social pressure, man. It's just peer pressure, encouragement, education, and hey, man, let's go out and hit the range and train. What are you going to work on here? What are we going to work on there? And by changing that tool into something of it's desirable to go train. It's good to go train, versus just look at my collection. That's the only way I think we can really, show people how to be safe, good weapons handling, good stewards, and educated and proficient. And man, the more people that are that, the better off we are.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Whereas I'm not going to say country. We're a culture. We're a culture of collectors. We're a culture of people who focus on the sexy things. The sexy thing is to have a Ferrari. The sexy thing is not to have a Miata that you could drive the shit out of. And so, the guy who stands next to his Ferrari where he goes and gets Starbucks versus the guy who does track days every day in his S2000, but is a driving son of a bitch.
Yep.
On social media and this platform, we tend to see a lot of people who have a lot of Ferraris. And, I can be arguably counted into that, I think from a different aspect, but not innocent nonetheless. And that people tend to try to keep up with the Joneses, and they lock onto, okay, well, this is the new thing. Well, this is the new thing. And I'm going to buy capability. I'm going to buy capacity. I'm going to try to rent skills. Well, those things can't be purchased, and it ends up in this never-ending cycle of spending money to constantly upgrade and adapt your equipment, because you think that's going to be just this little bit of money that I'm going to spend once is going to give me that next step, because that's sexy. And it's sexy and it's easy. Whereas if you spent the time to actually learn the skill set and train, that it costs a lot. It takes time. It costs ammo, and it takes you putting in making the decision to get better and do it consistently, because skills are perishable. Whereas you can buy an item and it exists. The item is there. It's in your safe. And so the fact that it exists doesn't degrade. If you leave a gun covered in black multicam in your gun safe, 6 months from now, it's going to look exactly the same and it's still going to be covered in black multicam. But if you take that skill set that you build from a 2-day class and you put it away and you don't touch it for 6 months, the next time you pull that skill set out, it's probably not the same as when you put it away.
Yeah. No, there's degradation there. If it was 100% before, it's at 95 or 90, whatever it ends up being, right? So, and if you take let's say there's a new widget X out, and let's qualify it, say it's 5% better, right? Are you really ever going to see that 5% improvement if you don't have the software to drive that, the know-how of when to use it, how to use it, when and how not to? So, the reason, I get beat at a match, it's not my gear. I've got the best gear money can buy. It's because there's somebody out there who went and trained more than I did, and they worked harder than I did, and they spent their time on that aspect of it, not, hey, what's the latest and greatest gear? And while I'm a guy that sells gear, I can't encourage people enough that's a portion of it, right? We say it's the Indian, not the arrow, but it sure helps to have a straight arrow. So there's some hardware solutions that are definitely appropriate, but man, I hate getting hung up on that.
It's a return on investment, right? And I see it as there's a baseline minimal quality of gear that I would tell people you should own. Like, if you can afford it and it's not going to put you in debt and, not be able to pay your bills, I think you should try to buy the best gear you can to eliminate the whole like buying things over and over again thing. Like, historically in precision rifles, prior to, all these billet actions and stuff, people would buy a Remington or buy a Savage or and then you'd put a bolt knob on and you put the Remington 700 or the Sako style extractor, you put a side bolt release, and so slowly you build this gun into what you want. Well, it's like now you can buy a Defiance, has all these options. It comes off the shelf that way. The gun you're putting together to begin with is, and that I think for most people, if you're trying to get seriously into shooting, you're going to spend more money trying to build that Remington to buy the gun, build it up, buy the chassis, than you will for, you guys or GA Precision or Masterpiece Arms, or take your pick, to build a baseline kind of basic custom rifle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where our approach to why LSA ever got started in the first place is, in 2005, when I first started, taking civilian classes, shooting 3-gun, stuff like that, the industry as a whole was much smaller and different. And so, guys like LaRue, they made a mount. If you wanted a work gun, you got a Colt. Bolt gun, you went and got a Gap. JP made the go-to competition rifle, Noveske made a barrel. It was just small and different. And I bought first AR when I got back from deployment. And I'm like, 6 months later, it's got a Bushmaster lower left and everything else in there's different. And I was like, why can't I just go buy one of these, Well, it can happen. And there's some awesome companies out there that are competitors, right? They're like, if I didn't do this myself, I'd go buy their stuff. Straight up, they're good. And they might have a little different style or approach than we do, but it's solid stuff, right? And so we kind of had the LSA way, right? That's where we came from. But I did the same thing with the Remington 700, and I pieced together a Bushmaster. And at the end of the day, had I had the ability or the know-how, I would have just gone and bought that, right? I might have spent a little more money up front, but I wouldn't have wasted the time trying to figure things out. I wouldn't have had that gap there and the time it took me to get that done and then go to the range. So we try and be a one-stop shop for people. Every day, I talk to people and they say, hey, I need to get a gun. I'm like, cool, tell me a little bit about what you're going to be doing with it. Because I don't want them to underspend. I don't want them to overspend. I want to get them something that's going to satisfy, their needs and their requirements. And sometimes you don't need a Bartlett barrel, in a duty gun, right? But maybe they do in their circumstance. And so we try and give people that ability. to, just consult for them and do everything we can to get them in the right hardware so they can, they get their job done, right?
Well, I think that's the key, right? Is understanding the customer and what they need, not what you want to sell.
Right.
And that's a good thing is, and I think nowadays, I think more companies are getting it than historically. I know when I first started getting it into the gun industry, I think social media was just really starting to kick off. And I don't think companies really understood the power of a loyal customer with this platform. And so, when you take care of a customer and you go the extra mile, it might cost you 40 or 50 bucks or $100 or $600 to make that person happy for a whether it's a $2,000 purchase or $5,000 purchase or $100 purchase. Like, going that extra mile, you don't realize when they tell 10 of their friends, or when they post to social media and they tell 25,000 friends, what that $50 investment as a company can lead to, because it's unmeasurable. You can't measure what a happy customer makes you. Like,
Right.
that's not,
Yeah, no
it's
way of
nothing
knowing.
to ever tell.
Yeah. Yeah. And my thing is like, if you have the best product, if you're constantly striving to better your product, yourself, your company, and you take care of that individual customer, then business success, if you will, money, whatever, profits, that comes. Like, I don't have to worry about that, because if we do the right thing, then that stuff will work out. But if I'm not customer focused and employee focused, and focused on the future, the direction, but not forgetting where we came from or where we are now, then that stuff will happen. So I think I sometimes get a little bit, customer focused, but I would much rather be customer focused than the opposite of that, right? So yeah, when you say like, we've put this, or we've given that, or helped this guy out with this, I hate to think like what we spent, but it doesn't matter. It was the right thing to do at the right time for those people, and we're glad to be able to do it.
I think at the end of the day, if your bills are paid and lights are on and you guys can stay afloat, I think, and a whole different, not industry, but a whole different market. I think, customer first, whether you're teaching, you're selling cars, you're a plumber, or you build guns. I think some people can and some people can't sleep well at night with how they treat people. And I think,
Right.
From how long I've known you, or, a lot of the guys who work for you, I think I can make that assumption that, I'd rather sleep well at night knowing I took care of people than have a couple extra dollars in my account.
Yeah, no, 100%, man, 100%.
But what? So we didn't talk about it. You were in the military. What's your background in the service?
Man, I was just a regular old 11 Bravo. So I enlisted in '04. I was at the 82nd, was my first duty station. I was the second of 325 there. And so we did OIF2, did like a 4-month short tour for the first elections. Came back, getting ready to go back again in a few months, and I got stuck in recruiting. So I tried to go to Afghanistan. And the sergeant major was like, "Oh no, Specialist Brady, we need you here. You're an important team member." Well, I didn't know at the time. Like, I'm just a kid. They had already gotten all the DA orders for guys going to drill sergeant school, guys going to recruiting, and I was stuck at that squad. So got stuck with recruiting for 2 years back here in Texas. But what was cool about that, and I try and look for the positive in everything, because there wasn't much positive about that. I went out to TAC Pro out in Mingus. So that was where I took my first like civilian-ish, firearms training outside the military. Man, that's where I got hooked on 3-gun precision rifle. And at the time, I looked at it as this is fun, but I'll be back on the line in a couple of years. So this is valuable skill set stuff that I could pass on, and is good for me. So So I started shooting 3-gun. I had that Bushmaster, started tuning it up, JP trigger and a float tube and a Krieger barrel and all that stuff. Um, Shot 3-gun with some awesome guys. I've always been surrounded by just top-notch people that are passionate about this. They've got longevity in this. They're very experienced. They're very educated. They're very technical. They're awesome teachers. And those are the guys that, whether it was the firearms training side or the gunsmithing side, they've contributed everything to this. It's not like I did this on my own. Just really been blessed to be surrounded by some awesome people. And so TAC Pro is kind of where it started. And, we started after I started working on my stuff and friend stuff, family stuff, friends of friends. I thought, man, the ATF probably has a license for this. So let's talk to them. So that was 06, January 06, got my first FFL, manufacturer's license, and started building Lone Star guns. Sun Devil was the original manufacturer on a variant of our receivers for us, and they did that till about 4.5 years ago. And then when I partnered up with my current business partners, we brought all the manufacturing in house for that. We have the mill shop burned down in March, right? So we're replacing all that. It'll be mid to late winter. We'll be up and running again on the receiver side. Fortunately, we had enough production that's getting us by until then. But so started shooting 3-gun precision rifle stuff back then, and when my time was up there in recruiting, man, when I re-enlisted, I went up to Wainwright, to 124 up there. Wanted to go to Alaska, wanted to experience that, and did a deployment with those guys out of there. Medically retired, got her last deployment, and so I got out of the Army. I just re-enlisted for another 6 years. I dropped a warrant officer packet. It was going to like the January 1st Sessions Board, and I got hurt on the 14th of December. So who knows, man? The good Lord does not want me in a helicopter, apparently. So every time I've been in a helicopter, I've been hurt, man. I'm just like, maybe this isn't the right thing for me. So when medically retired, moved back to Alaska, or from Alaska back to Fort Worth, and my wife Amy and I had the conversation. It's like, if we want to make a go of this, if we think we can do this full time, like now's the time. And here we are now. This is 11 and a half years later. So again, man, it's been really important to me, that people know that, it's been a community of people. It's been some really, really good folks, friends that are like family, right? And strangers, man. The firearm industry is really neat because there's not many, I say firearm industry also, but, competitive shooting, right? There's not many other sports you go to where all of the competitors are going to help you beat them. They're willing to lend gear. They're willing to lend knowledge. And I just think that's a good sense of community. It speaks highly of the people,
I've definitely experienced the same. I love, when you're shooting a PRS match or you're at a match and, there's a junior shooter in your squad and you see, the guys wearing jerseys or the guys or gals, Roger and up to help them kind of either walk through a stage or how they're going to build a position or, hey, try this bag this time, or, hey, you don't have a sling. Hey, I have one in my truck or whatever. Yep. So that they can fully, and then, you get to the prize table and they can take advantage of the experience. And then you get to the prize table. I don't think I've ever been to a match where somebody who placed near the top didn't give something to somebody who either a new shooter, a female shooter, somebody at the bottom, a service member, like something wasn't given away where it was somebody who obviously has benefited from the industry greatly or like Marcus did for one of your guys' guns, and turns around and gives that to somebody that I think really it really helps bring them into the fold of the industry or the community rather. And I think that's really key. I think a lot of people can get locked into a lot of the negatives and stuff that are brought in by too many egos. But there's some of that. But I think as a whole, I think the community really is very welcoming. If you step away from some of the bravado that is portrayed on the surface.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, hey, there's always people are going to people, right? You know, there's always going to be that guy. But man, Vastly as a whole, met nothing but just first class people doing this.
So, in building Lone Star guns, you said you had Sun Devil do your receivers and stuff. What was your goal when you started building guns? Like, what did you view as your unique selling proposition? Like,
Yeah. So the two, or what actually kind of the principles we talked about, you know, earlier, the reliability side, the accuracy side, the ergonomics. Then, you know, there was a few free float tubes on the market, you know, for instance. But like if you ever, I shot a lot of sporty clays growing up, and I used to do a lot of bird hunting stuff. And so like if you ever go take like shotgun instruction, you know, the first thing they want to talk about is shotgun fit. You know, if it's not, you're not looking where it's pointing, you're going to miss, etc. But man, nobody ever said that about a rifle or a carbine or a pistol to me, you know. And I'm like, this just doesn't make sense. Like that's our direct, like physical connect relationship with the gun. It's got to be right, you know. So you know, just looking at you know, back in the day, like when you had, you know, 14.5-inch carbine gas system, well, a Picatinny rail. Why do we have a quad rail Picatinny rail? Well, it's because you had a 7-inch section that you had to put a light, a laser, a vertical foregrip, which only came about because you had to fill everything else up and had nowhere to hold it. You know, like, is that the most ergonomic way to set one of these up? No. So you saw the evolution of longer handguards, low pro gas blocks, stuff like that, right? And then the pick rail went away, so you could put a little pick rail where you need it, and that's it, right? So, you know, then you got stocks and grips, and but I did, you know, being on both sides of the gun from a working background, like it's got to be reliable, and I knew what the accuracy, you know, kind of standards were for military stuff, or like MA55, and then I knew what we were doing in 3-gun with good stuff, and I'm like, there is no an accurate rifle doesn't necessarily mean an unreliable rifle, which was kind of it's kind of a stereotype to some people, you know, or a tight 1911's you know, a 1911 that'll malfunction is a stereotype, and that's just a very broad, vague generalization of what's going on. So I knew we could make these things just ultra, you know, hyper accurate. I knew we could make them reliable as they could be. We know we can make them fit. We can make the feel better. We could make a gun that was versatile and filled all of these roles. So that's where I looked at it, and I wanted someone to be able to purchase a firearm at a price point that they could afford with a good value for them, and be able to upgrade the least amount of things possible, right? So I didn't want to sell a $700, you know, M4 copy where if a guy got into competitive shooting or, you know, kind of wanted to expand the gun, you know, he had to get a free flow tube, he had to get a better barrel, he had to get a better trigger, he had to get the gun tuned, etc. So I wanted so originally we had our truck gun light, right? So that was like our lowest, you know, our lowest price point. That's the minimum of what I consider a carbine. So I needed it to be reliable, right? I needed it to be free floated. I needed I have an accuracy expectation. So like it doesn't need to be one of our Bartlett barrel guns, but like the BA guns or our X-Cal barrels, or BA barrels, excuse me, or X-Cal barrels, you know, that accuracy requirement to me is very very acceptable. And for probably what 99.9% of people that need a carbine need it to do. So I didn't want a guy to have to buy a rifle from me, and then the next thing you know, all he had was an LSA lower receiver. He had changed everything else out. And in doing that, we tried to, you know, my automatic, you know, approach to it is like, nope, best of the best. That's all we're going to do, and leave it at that, right? Well, not everybody's buying a $4,000 AR, right? So I thought, okay, well, if in that top tier bracket, the two things that really drive the price of a carbine is going to be the barrel quality and the trigger quality, right? So if a law enforcement officer doesn't need a Bartlett barrel, BA barrel is acceptable for their accuracy standard. They don't need a Trigger Tech trigger, right? The standard mil spec or maybe a little bit upgraded trigger is sufficient for their qualifications or accuracy standards and what they need that gun to do. Well, hey, let's build that model for them. And so that's where the MPC, the duty model came from. And so with that, we've got roughly three. We have a standard, the duty, and the enhanced. Roughly about three kind of brackets for pricing, if you will, or categories. That, man, I think that the value in the standard is still so good. I've had some outstanding shooters beat me with my own gun that was a lesser model LSA than the top model, right? And I'm just like, man, I need to go shoot more, So I really think it gives people a good value. It's not a $500, $700 AR, but to me, that's the minimum carbine I'd want to go to work with. So again, going back to sleeping easy at night, man, I think it's good value, and we've got kind of something for everybody. If I like, as we grow, and I hope that I can always stay at this point where if a guy comes to me and says, hey, I like this model, I like that duty, but I like that enhanced, but you know what? I want that duty gun, but I want a better trigger, or I want a better barrel. Like, man, we can accommodate that. Just ask me. We put that in the custom shop. Take a little longer, but we definitely can accommodate that, and I hope we always can. I don't want to be so rigid. We're like, yeah, you get the white one, the black one, the brown one, or the gray one. I don't want to do that. I want to still maintain that connection to the end user and being able to support what their needs are.
Yeah, I see people like, and I think that's the crossover, right? Like people who get so big that they can't do that anymore. And I think another company, competitor of yours, but friends of mine still, Seekins, Maddie and the Seekins boys still has the custom shop. But
Yep.
Places like Daniel Defense or LaRue or KAC or you're kind of just buying what's on the rack. Like you can't really call and alter those guns. I don't know if Radian is. I don't know if BCM is.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't even know if Sons of Liberty is. I'm just trying to think of other what people consider quality. I was a big fan of Daniel Defense for a long time, and I still am. I have one of their AR-10s that works great, and they took care of me on that gun. But I was really not disappointed. It's kind of that, does it matter or does it not? I'm a person who likes hard-built shit, and I got a Daniel Defense recently in the last few years, and I started seeing how much polymer they're putting on it. Marty got the machines to make polymer stuff, and so now the ejection port cover is polymer, the selector is polymer, and so money saving, I got it, but at what expense? And what expense of longevity, what expense of reliability, what expense of, and it's like, well, people are going to upgrade that. Well, yeah, or you could just put it in there. I don't know. It's but again, that's the difference between somebody like Radian or you or these higher end companies versus still quality stuff, but you don't see a Lone Star gun in every gun shop, but you'll probably end up in a lot of them. You'll see a lot of Daniel Defense, BCM, et cetera. So I don't know what the trade off is.
Man, we're still figuring that out, man. There's a balance there, and I mean, good for those guys, man. They're huge. They've been super successful. Depending on what your definition of that is, right? And they've done good things for good people, and that's awesome. But like I don't know, man. We'll have to cross that bridge when we get there. I definitely, man. I look at everything as hard use, though, man. At the end, like, these are nice. They're awesome looking. They're awesome. They're end of the day, they're a tool, and it's got to work. And the worst thing is a guy that brings me back a rifle that's had it, and it looks like it just left. And I'm just like, man, if you've even been shooting this thing, get out and use it. I still get guys that are like, and this is like as you get bigger, you begin to reach up, guys that were shooters first, like they were our crowd. We shot with them, we trained with them. That's why they were customers first. And from there, as you grow, you begin to reach, the newer, last year, man, was just, we had folks that it was like the first gun they'd ever bought. They're like, hey, I don't like how things are going. I feel like I need to be a little more concerned. And have the ability to take care of myself, and I need to buy a firearm from you. Hey, what are you doing, little man? I'm sorry, man. My buddy just brought his kiddo in here, and he's waving at me, so I got to wave back at him. Come here.
You can jump on. Screw it.
What you been doing? Baby Falls. Come here. You want to say hi to Joe? Say hi, Joe. He's on TV. Say
How
hi,
old is he?
Joe.
How old is he?
Almost 2.
Oh, wow. That's a good age.
We're just giving you a good try, so. Cool, man. Good seeing you. Ah.
So, hey, if you guys have any questions, dude, put them down there. I'm watching. You got what you guys say. You got some compliments earlier saying that you were taking care of people. You know, so you were talking about multi-use. So let's talk into different style builds. And so because you've moved into AR-10s, you've moved into doing a lot of bolt guns. You're doing PCCs now. How long did it take you? Because I know we talked about this when you first started bringing them on. You expanded into PCCs. How much testing went into that before you were comfortable enough to release one that you could put your name on?
So the PCCs actually worked out really quick. We did that. That was a new product at SHOT Show in 2019. That's going to be 2018, I think now. I'd built PCCs for guys on like QC10 receiver sets. Worked on JP stuff for guys, other brand X PCCs. And so I think by the time we decided to manufacture our own, it was really, we had done everything else except just the receiver sets. And so David, my partner David and John, David is just like, he's the guy that can make the thing to make the thing to make the thing, right? And so he looked at it and was like, hey, this is how we could do last round bolt hold open. This will be really clean if we do it this way. It's a little more difficult, but I think it'll look better. And hey, if it works, man, then hey, make it look good after that. So we did. We pulled the first PCC receiver set and all the like proprietary, our mag catch and our bolt catch and linkage and stuff for last round bolt hold open. We pulled all of that stuff off of the machines like maybe a month before SHOT Show. It happened fast. I literally, like, we didn't deburr parts. I like stuck a gun together, went to the range and put like 1,500 rounds through it over the next 2 days. And honestly, when we first made them, it was driven by the customer. I didn't really have much of a need for a 9. I was like, hey, I've got every caliber known to man. They're fun to shoot, but I don't have a specific need for one. But after that, I found a need for one. I was like, this is just fun. And at the time, of course, it's 9mm. It's cheap to shoot. We've got quite a few outdoor ranges around here that you can run handgun in, and they got bays and they've got steel, but you can't run a rifle in. And so I thought the training was there. I was like, man, that's incredible. You get the ergonomics of your carbine, actually a little bit stiffer recoil impulse, and you could train with that cheaper and I think made it kind of efficient and effective. So with our PCCs, the reliability was there, the accuracy's there, all that. One of the things though that we worked on was recoil impulse and recoil management. So we we changed out the buffer spring setup, and it went from recoiling pretty significant to, man, probably one of the softer shooting PCCs out there. And that was a huge change for us, I think, in how, man, Heather Miller got her PCC, and she was like, dude, this thing recoils so freaking much. She was like, I don't even want to shoot it. Like, it hurts. And I'm like, note self, let's figure this out, man. And Taylor got on that and sorted it out. So we're the early, I don't exactly remember like serial number or date change, but pretty much everything since the first year or a little less has been swapped over to the new style. The I guess the evolution of the AR, the gas gun with this was pretty organic. In 2010, we'd been building large frame guns for a little bit of time on like DPMS stuff, again, Brain X stuff. Um, One of the things early on that we started doing was tuning every rifle. So I grew up in the race car world, and it's mechanical, right? It's motors, it's transmissions, it's chassis, it's suspension. So that was not foreign to me. And when I started really figuring out how the gas guns worked and what made this tick and the tuning of the gun. So Paul Gomez uh, was a very good close person to me and a lot of my friends. He was a good trainer and just a good man. And he gave me a 7.5-inch DPMS Kitty Cat upper. So one of his clients is like, "Hey, thanks for the class. Here's an upper. Keep it, whatever." Well, it wouldn't run. And so when you take a pistol length gas system 5.56, that is like the top fuel dragster of ARs. They're the most obnoxious, violent, hard on things, concussive. If you make one of those run and you make it run for a long time, well, you're doing something right. And we figured out how to make that thing run. You add a can to a gun, it's gonna be harder on it. Put it on a machine gun lower, and it's gonna be even harder. So when we started making those things run suppressed, full auto, those principles basically directly applied to everything else we did in the gas gun. And when it came time for us to do large frame guns, man, that was a learning curve, man. It was tough. We worked our ass off on it, and it was those principles from the little guns that kind of flowed over and allowed us to make the large frame guns do what they do. And but man, yeah, it was a big challenge. So I was really, really glad we finally got the recipe sorted. We've had a lot of really good feedback on the large frame gun specifically. There's quite a few people out there that build some pretty badass small frame guns. Honestly, there's good dudes out there nowadays. But on the large frame side, man, it's much, much fewer. And so the guys that are doing it right, man, they're few and far between. So we're glad that we sorted that out. It could really, helps folks out with those.
Yeah, Eric was asking, Bruiser carbine, is it its own model or is it a massage of a current offering? I went to so that whole Bruiser thing happened because everybody has an AR, and if you guys follow me for long enough, I'm not somebody who I don't want to throw my logo on anything. I want to kind of connect with people that I consider friends and can have a lasting relationship with. And so I had this conversation with Andrew before we ever decided to do anything. And I said, look, here's the deal. I said, I didn't want to jump in with somebody who had 57 shooters in their stable. I didn't want to jump in with somebody who, had a bunch of people that shooters were coming in and out, because I'm really careful with who I connect my brand to. And I think there's a bit of osmosis, right? So if you connect yourself to a brand and that brand connects themselves to somebody else that's a flash in the pan or a bad representative in some way through, the transition of companies or the reputation, you get some of that. And so that's why I've stayed with the companies and the people that I have for as long as I have. And so I started talking with Andrew about it. And I said, I want to build a gun that's as nice a spec as I can think of, like the best parts I can think of. And I want it, and that's it. And that's the only options. I don't want it to be semi-tiered. I don't want there to be 47 different things you can do, 100 different colors. It's not a custom build. It's the Bruiser build, and that's it. And so we talked about the options I wanted, the things I had to have on that gun, and we came up with it. So correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it's on your guys' website, but I think if you call the shop and you tell him you want a Bruiser build, he'll set you up. Now, there is options. There's barrel length options, but there's only 2 different barrel options. There's Ballistic Advantage and Bartland, and then we made it lawful.
2 barrels, a couple of lengths, a law folder. It's black or FDE. That's it.
Yep. And then the gas block.
Yeah, adjustable or fixed gas block. Yep. So
and that was because
Yeah, you're man. It was. I mean, I'm glad you're like that though, because like that makes my life. That's how I want to be. You know, I'd be like, hey, you buy this gun and that's it. You know, but we got to be reasonable and make sure it's a best tool for the job and have some options for guys, right?
Well,
But
and that was my thing was I was like, if people want a custom build, you already make them. Like,
yeah,
and I and I don't really care that my logo's on every gun, out there. I don't. I really don't. And so if you guys want something that Andrew and I put together and has our logo on it and is the best gun that I could think of, and we could come up with, then order it. And we came up with a PCC option and a AR-15 option in 5.56 and 300 block. That's it. And it's the things that I was I had to have forward assist and
yep,
and I wanted it to just be two colors. I didn't, and I liked their more simple upper and lower designs. I'm not somebody who likes 1,000 cuts in the gun, and so their enhanced models have a lot more cuts in them and a little fancier machining than the Bruiser does. But that's it, man. And yeah, you guys can call Andrew direct and he'll set you up.
yep. And on the in regards to the website, so Ian came on board. Him and Nick have been doing the marketing, some sales stuff up in the north, and coordinating the website. So the website's been changed quite a bit, and it's going to change even more. So as it progresses in the next month to 2 months, we'll get your rifle will go up there. The bolt gun stuff will go up. More, I'll say details, more options for the guy. Any packages, whether it's because right now it's just the rifles. The optics packages will be going up. Light packages, sling package, hand stops, backup iron sights. Just common accessory packages for the gas guns, bolt guns, etc. And so the website, man, I bet you it's at 50% of what it will be in a couple of 2 or 3 months. So I'm glad to see that going back up, man. And I've got quite a few people, man, that are like industry associates. I mean, obviously you included. We want to when guys come to our website, I want them to do one of two things preferably. One, I want them to buy a gun from us, right? But two, I want them to I want to be a resource for them to go, hey, where should I go train at? Or man, what blog should I go look at? And so, originally LSA was, I mean, this was my baby. Like this was like, this is what I use. This is what I believe in. This is our approach, how we do it. And that's all we're going to do at LSA. And so it's kind of an extension of that. It's like, hey, these are the guys I like to train with. These are the guys I listen to. These are the guys I really value their advice and opinion. Obviously these are the guns that we like, but these are the other folks that, you need to pay attention to that if you want to progress and get some just good, solid, not biased information. So, we would have some more links up there, and we're expanding the website. It's been awesome, man. Ian and Nick have done an awesome job on the social media and trying to put more stuff out there to people. Because I can't get to all of it,
No,
So,
you can't wear all the hats. And so I'm excited to see where you guys go. I know you guys ended up in a video game. How did that end up happening?
That was pretty cool. So there's a guy named Joseph Stevens, and he worked for me 4 years ago. And awesome dude. He works over at Stand One Armory. We're a distributor for their ammo, by the way. He works over there now. And I walked by one day and he was like, "Hey, boss." And I'm like, "Yeah, what's up, Joe?" He goes, "Hey, can I talk to this video game guy and see if you can be in their video game?" And I'm like, I don't play video games, right? Like I played Nintendo when I was a kid, whatever. And I was just kind of like, yeah, man, whatever. I didn't think much of it. He was excited about it. And then like maybe a month later, he was like, "Hey, like we need to talk about this. They're emailing us. We got contracts and stuff." And I'm like, whoa, buddy, slow down. Like, what are we talking about here? And he goes, "Yeah, you remember the video game I told you about?" And I was like, "Yeah, And he said they want to do this. So I was like, okay, I need to pay attention to this, right? And he shows it to me, Escape from Tarkov, and he what what really impressed me about them was how detail oriented they were. Man, we did high def photos, videos. We did like this audio recorder. It's like this pro grade audio recorder, both like suppressed and unsuppressed, indoors and outdoors. I mean, they wanted they wanted everything so much. I looked at ITAR to make sure I wasn't messing up. Okay, and and like this was legit. So, and at the end of the day, their contract is like this. It's like, hey, look, anything we would charge you, you would charge us for like advertising, and it's a wash. So basically all it is it's free exposure for me. You know, we had a little bit of work that went into it, but we don't get paid. We don't get compensated. It's just neat that, you know, we get to kind of advertise in this demographic. And the damnedest thing about that is I've had grandpas, I've had cops, I've had pretty much everybody you could think of that come in my shop and be like, hey, you know you're in a video game? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And they're like, man, I was playing EFT. They call it EFT. I was playing EFT, and I was like, man, I got that rifle for patrol. Like, they're a cop. I got that patrol rifle, and they've got it in my game, you know? So it was really cool to see how many people out there play video games. You had no idea, you know? And it's been a cool, man, there's guys that do, you know, my kids like to watch these reviewers on YouTube, you know, and I don't know, but, you know, so you go Google YouTube, like Escape from Tarkov, Lone Star Armory, man. And you got these dudes just freaking shooting it up, man, just freaking mixing it up with this LSA DML rifle in there and having a good time. So, and all of that audio and video, or the audio is stuff that we did, you know, Taylor did. It's pretty cool.
When I started looking into, I wanted to see what kind of reviews were out there on your guns. I started Googling it, and the old Google machine brought up all those videos of people talking about the best gun in the game and the Escape from Tarkov and that Lone Star build. The 9-hole review guys have a really good review of your gun up too.
Yeah, man. Josh did one of the earlier, or I guess probably the bigger now, you know, YouTube reviews. And they've got a cool, like, just 9-hole reviews is cool. Like, I like that channel. They've got a good approach to it. I met Josh through Ben, maybe, Miller. Josh is a phenomenal shooter. But he's also just, man, and again, it's a nice guy. Like, this is a relationship. I say it's a relationship industry. That's life, man. Like, we should just value relationships with people. Like, don't value things, value time with people, value experiences with people. Anyways, sidetrack. So, Josh, we had talked actually with Josh quite a bit about the PCC, because he's, man, PCC, I think, Grandmaster. Kind of like, hey, what do you look for in a PCC? What's deal breaker? What's not? So he got one of the initial PCCs and shot the shit out of it. But he got we sponsor him. Okay, full disclosure. But he only wanted us to sponsor him because he believed in the stuff. I mean, this isn't a paid deal. I mean, it's either, man, I believe in this enough that I'm going to run it, or, nah, man, like, this isn't for us. So he's got that MPC Enhance that you see in the 9-hole review they did. And a good video. It's been awesome for us. I get a lot of guys call me up saying, hey, I saw you on YouTube. I saw you on the 9-hole channel. So it's been great exposure. Been a great relationship with them on the, you know, kind of the feedback side. And, man, just being able to support him, man. Man, he's fast with a gun. So, and they got that Slate Black Industries company. So they've been making rail panels and hand stops and stuff. And that's been a great value, man. That's probably the best value in that, you know, that niche there for that product.
Oh, they're definitely. I have both. So I have some of the Slate Black and I have some rail scales, and there's a quality difference, but there's a huge price difference.
Mm-hmm.
And so you do get what you pay for when you get one versus the other. And I won't tell anybody any different, but if you're looking for a value of a hand stop and something that, I mean, they work. It's on my 9mm little trunk gun I built.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they work.
Yep.
Somebody was saying, do you set your rifles up to run suppressed out of the box, or is there some tuning required by the end user?
Yeah, so going back to where so you can build and you can make sure tolerances are the same. You could measure, you know, head space. You can measure bore diameter, gas bolt carrier group, bore ID, gas key. You can make sure everything's consistent, right? That's just QC. That's normal, right? But you build 10 guns, and 8 of them are going to take one particular, we're not even going to talk adjustable gas block, just fixed gas block gun. 8 of them are going to take one buffer and spring, and one of them is like, hey, I want a little bit, I want an H2 buffer instead of an H, or I want an H3 instead of H2, or it wants a lighter spring, a white spring co spring versus a blue or a red. And if you don't address that initially, then you got the 10th gun. It's like, man, I'm over here doing my own thing. Fix me up. If you don't initially address that, when the guns get hot, when they get dirty, when they get dry, they're going to choke. And with the suppressor, what we found is the vast, to some degree, like when I say overgassed, that's not a bad thing necessarily. Every AR has to be overgassed at some point, or it will not be reliable. So you're always going to have a little more gas than you prefer, but it has to be that way for the gun to be reliable. So we want the gun to run reliably in pretty much all conditions on the minimal amount of gas with the heaviest buffer and spring. So vast majority of guns are undersprung, underbuffered, and overgassed, like significantly. And the reason that is because, when a larger manufacturer, when they're cranking these things out, they build, I don't even know how many guns they build, right? They build a lot. So they don't know who's getting the gun. They don't know what kind of ammo this guy's going to be running. They don't know if it's suppressed. They don't know if it's, they don't know. So they're going to have to err on the side of this gun is probably going to work with whatever ammo this guy puts in it. And most people don't have suppressors, as much as I'd love to change that. So there's a manufacturer out there who's got 2 distinctly different gas ports for their guns. One is very big, commercial gas port. The other one is normal, like a mil-spec-ish gas port. Well, the problem is the big gas port is for guys that are going to run Wolf, lower pressure ammo, right? And they're probably not running a cam. The problem is when a guy gets one of those guns and he's got good quality ammo in it, and he puts a can on the gun, so it got hot and then it got even hotter. So now, man, the gun just can't keep up with itself. It's running too fast because it's way overgassed, undersprung, and underbuffered. Can it be fixed? Sure. But, companies have to err on that side. I need this gun to probably run with whatever this guy's got. And I see where they're coming from. But to me, like, that's not sat. Yeah, pretty much every company test fires their guns, but we test fire every gun, and then we're also tuning every gun. So every gun that we run out of here, especially like your TX-15 or 5.56, stuff like that, you're looking at 50 to 100 rounds through every gun before it leaves, because it's going to get an initial tune. It's going to get checked when it's hot, after it's got a mag through it. If it's going out with a can, or I know the guy's running a can, I'm definitely checking, can alignment on a gun. If I don't have, like, let's say he's got some Brain X can I don't have, we'll put something on it to check alignment at least. But when we tune a gun, we tune the gun without the suppressor. We're going to tune the gun with the heaviest buffer, the heaviest spring, and the least amount of gas. If it has an adjustable gas block, that it will run before it gets suppressed. And it's got to run hot, it's got to run dry, and it's got to run off the shoulder. And if you will always add buffer and spring, spring rate and buffer weight and less amount of gas to that setup to kind of optimize it. And then once you get it there, when you put a can on the gun, it's still going to run without the can because you tuned it without the can. So, but you've also compensated for how overgassed, undersprung, and underbuffered it was. So when you put the can on the gun, yes, it's going to increase the cyclic rate a little bit because there's more back pressure, but you've already compensated for a lot of it through tuning the gun prior to the can. And the reason we tune the gun first without the can is because personally, and most guys are professionally using a gun, they don't want the gun to only run with the can, because if you ever have to take the can off, your shit doesn't run, that's bad day. So 99.9% of the time, we're always going to tune the gun first without the can, and in doing that, it compensates for the can use. Can you tune it down a little softer with the can on? Yes. But the trade-off to that is if you ever take the can off, the gun doesn't have enough gas to run, it's going to short stroke. You've got a single shot AR without a can. So that's been, man, that's what we do every day. And that's done good things for reliability for us.
He said, what cans do you have to tune with?
We've got Dead Air, Surefire, both Legacy, SOCOM, T-Back. We do a lot of Dead Air business and a lot of Thunder Beast business. Primarily, those are the two cans that we sell, we run, we recommend. Surefire as well. I've got some old one-off Gym Tech stuff, SAS stuff, but primarily the Surefire, the T-Back, the Dead Air, Silencer Co's.
I think the Surefire and the Dead Air tend to be the more popular right now, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for what I would consider like a heavy duty, a machine gun rated can, the Surefires are made out of Inconel, machine gun rated, etc. Dead Air, they're a Stellite baffle stack, same thing, like hard use, heavy duty, like turn this thing red, let it cool, and do it again. But with that comes a little bit heavier suppressor. So typically on the precision rifle side, or even a carbine that's not going to see, just mag dump after mag dump after mag dump, or potential full auto use, and guys want to go with something really light, then we recommend the T-Back on the titanium can side. But the Dead Air, I really like their quick attach mechanism. They've got a great design, very repeatable, doesn't carbon lock. Surefire, man, that was the first can I ever had, man. I bought a Surefire back in 2005 or 6, and on a, not even a trust, man, just an individual. I didn't have an SOT back then. I'm still shooting, man. It's been awesome. So now, of course, we got the SOCOM models and all that, but yeah, we definitely going to tune them with the cans, or we're going to check the tune. If we know the guy's running a can, we're going to tune it, and then we're going to check it with a can, because we know the gun has at least enough gas, and not too much buffer and spring. But then on the off chance when you put the can on, the gun speeds up. Man, I couldn't tell you if it's ever happened, to be honest with you, that when you tune the gun without the can and then put the can on the gun, that the gun it ran too fast. I don't think it's ever happened to me. So that's just kind of been our method there, and what's man, that's the secret, honestly, behind why our guns run. So
let's
get extra time and extra ammo and extra money, but it's worth it.
Well, I think that's the difference, right? I know 1911 builders. I have some. I know it's like John Jardine out of San Francisco is historically puts, like, I think something like thousands of rounds through, or 1,000 rounds or something through every gun he builds, because the dude's spending, a 9 mil or 45, $300-400 of the gun cost is so that he can make sure that gun runs before you ever get it.
Yep.
But that might be on the excessive side, but that's he won't sell a gun without. I don't like the idea that people say that guns have to break in.
Yep.
I think if you're building a gun that you're telling people it's acceptable to malfunction for 500 rounds or 600 rounds, or I think that's lazy. And now, yes, guns break in. Like anything that's metal on metal, you're going to have a certain period of time where the contact points wear, the hard edges break down. But I don't think you should ever buy a gun and then it be acceptable that gun fail for a certain period of time. I think that gun should run from the moment you take it out of the box, or at least aspire
with 1911 or 2011 guys that I knew early on. And that was kind of their method. They built them so tight. They said, "Look, don't even call me if this thing doesn't run for the first 1,000 rounds through the gun." And really, all you're doing is you're finished the fit and the lapping. You're doing it, not them. And now with machining techniques and there's still some hand fitment that goes into some of that, man. It's an art, man. I do not work on 1911s. Don't do it, man.
I think
wish I had that skill set.
Also have there's a big difference now. I think people get caught up in 1911 builders. There's a lot of 1911 assemblers.
Yeah.
There's still the same number of very talented 1911 smiths. And I think there's a big difference in that. In most of these companies now, I think, if you ask somebody like the classic gunsmith, right? The classic gunsmith historically was you bring in your grandfather's shotgun. They don't make a part anymore. A classic gunsmith will make the part to replace it instead of just ordering up Brownells, punching a couple pins, and then swapping it out and telling you you're done. And I think, I look at guys, I've been very blessed to be very close friends with people like Chuck Rogers, Ned Christensen, Jason Burton, these guys who have been around for a very long time and are very talented. Bruce Gray, who, if they don't make it, call it. If they don't make a thing, like their metallurgy and their ability to manufacture, basically they're tool makers. They'll make it out of metal.
But gunsmith is a machinist and a tool maker. That's all he is.
Yeah. So
I'm not a gunsmith.
Nowadays, with modern CNC machines and programming, and like you said, production methods, I think a lot of people can buy the parts from everybody, and there's minimal actual fitting that's involved to build a gun, or to smith what people in the industry would call a custom 1911. They're not. Right. I mean, there are companies who do. Not saying nobody does anymore. I'm just saying there's a lot that are gun assemblers and are not gun.
Yeah. And I've always felt like, because there's guys like, Mike Lau, Ken Corcoran, Jimmy Mitchell, like these gunsmiths that like mentored me or would answer my questions when I was new to this, still do to this day sometimes. Like, those are gunsmiths. Like Taylor that works for me, the guy chambering your barrels, he's a gunsmith. I'm not. Like, I'm really good at building. I'm really good at tuning, but I don't go cut chambers. That's Taylor. That's not me, man. It's like, I always have had a big distinction between you're an armorer, you're a gunsmith, just because I've got a lot of respect for those guys, man. I mean, they're the ones that made what we do today, and it kind of set that standard, and it's been awesome. So
what's sad is that when things go bad, you need a gunsmith. You don't need an armorer. And I think what I see happening, which is sad in this industry, is a lot of those guys, people can go and take a couple building classes, as in, like, I can take an AK building class, or I can take a 1911, basically an armorer's course. And yeah, you can go buy most of the parts off Brownells and you can build a gun that basically runs, or you can take some basic programming classes and do a lot of external machining that looks fancy. But the person's actual gunsmithing ability is very small. And people like the Bruce Grays, the Chuck Rogers, these guys who spent years refining their craft, the Ned Christensens, etc., those guys don't have apprentices, and their skills aren't being passed on. And it's going to be a huge loss when that generation of builders retire and or pass on, because there is so many fewer motivated, talented people with those backgrounds. Like Chuck Rogers was a aerospace engineer before he was not engineer, an aerospace. He made aerospace parts. Ned Christensen was a tool and die maker. Bruce Gray was he has his degree in welding. And so, yeah, you can take two, P7 slides and weld them together and do some of the stuff they do, because that's the background. A lot of the guys can't. Like, you can sit down with a CNC machinist and tell them you want serrations here and this thing there, and but the actual understanding of metallurgy and how the parts go together and true design, not aesthetics, I think is really being lost.
Yeah. But I think too, like on that note, like these gunsmiths, like they started working on guns because they needed to create something to satisfy or fulfill their need that nobody else did. So, like, one of the things that I feel that is something we definitely don't want to lose touch with. Is like earlier I mentioned, like, hey, I came from a working background with a gun, been on both sides of the gun as of you. So like I can speak to somebody about their needs for this particular rifle in this particular situation. We got guys that are law enforcement, guys out of the military, guys that are badass competitive shooters. So like we stay relevant and connected to what the end user's needs are, whether it's like us still taking training, us, going and shooting matches. Like we don't want to lose that connection with why do we do what we do. And the gunsmiths that did this because they were the ones using it at the end of the day. They were doing it for themselves. And then the other guys were like, man, that was awesome. We want that too. I mean, those were the craftsmen, they're artists, and they know why they're doing what they're doing and how it should feel and how it should look. They're not like, hey man, make this cool cut here and I'm going to go shoot it. Like they're not just doing things just to do them. There was a purpose and they were connected to that. And that was their need, and they took care of it. And those are the guys that are going. It's a dying breed, and I don't. This isn't because of like you can't do it. You're not an artist for the money ever, right? It's passion, but again, it's a culture of gun owners and gun collectors and not shooters. Like we don't value it. If you go, guys bring their everyday carry gun into me. Hey, this is my self-defense gun for my family. In the worst case scenario, this is what I'm going to rely on, right? And they balk at a better labor rate than I should be giving them because they just don't value our work that goes into what they're doing. Like this is life support equipment, dude. Do you want the brand new, least expensive, least experienced guy fixing the gun that you're going to when it's your worst day ever? So but they'll take their Harley to the Harley dealership and pay $120 an hour to get the oil changed, And it just comes down to, I think, a culture thing, man, and like what's important to them, what do they value? So,
Well, I think
man, we need
that
to value skilled trades.
people get locked into, does the gun look like it works or does it work? I mean, I think that the perfect example of that is Glocks or polymer frame guns as a whole.
Yeah.
You'd have a hard argument with most people to say that a stock Glock or a stock MMP, I mean, really any of the guns anymore, out of the box won't do what you need it to do. So what changes are you making and why? Are you upgrading the sight so you can see them better? Okay. Do you want a better, more crisp trigger? Okay. Why are you making it look like Swiss cheese?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are you putting 14 windows? But that gun, when it was designed around that much mass in the slide to be sprung that way. It's the same thing. This translates into ARs. I mean, how many problems have you seen with low mass bolt carrier groups with guns that's great if you're a competitive shooter and you shoot one round and you tuned that gun for your competitive load and you want it to be as light a gun as humanly possible. So you have one variable. That's it. And you control it. But now take that gun and deploy to Afghanistan. Take that gun and put it in a patrol car. Take that gun and don't clean it. Take that gun and run 3 or 4 classes or as an instructor, go shoot. Will Petty shoots 200 plus days a year on the road. That guy's not running, holes in the side of his magwell and a super uber titanium, super high polished, because he's probably running whatever ammo's at the class, whatever he could get his hands on, whatever he could to continue to do what he needs to do with that gun, with that tool. And now, is there a spot for coffee table guns? Yeah, just like there is for show cars. And people build them for different reasons.
First, man.
But you have to realize you're building a gun.
Yeah, function first. Once it runs, it's easy to make it look good, So just that's our priority then. I want a gun to run first. Period. We'll make it look good after that.
So let's talk about we talked about your guys' guns and how you guys build them. Let's do a little bit on if somebody's looking to build. Let's give some keys to the kingdom. Somebody wants to build their own gun. Where do they start, and what parts are important?
So and this is the conversation I typically have with people is, hey, what are you going to tell me what you're going to be doing with the gun, mainly, primarily, and what is your budget? Cool. this is where we're going to spend our money first. We're going to spend our money first on the barrel, the bolt carrier group, and the buffer, the tuning, buffer and spring. Okay, that is the heart of the gun. You could put a trigger tech in there. You could put a mil-spec trigger in there. You could put an ambi safety. You could put a mil-spec safety. That doesn't matter. That's our safeties or ergonomics. Triggers, they're either quality or they're not. Some are lighter, some are shorter, etc. But if it runs, it runs. Like if it's reliable, it's reliable. And the pull weight, that's purely ergonomics to me, because a gun with a 15-pound trigger is inherently as accurate as a gun with a 5-ounce trigger. It's just easier to shoot a 5-ounce trigger, obviously. So we're spending money on the barrel, the bolt carrier group, and making sure the gun's tuned up right. So that's what makes the gun work. That is the operating system of the gun. After that, it's going to be the ergonomic side of it. After that, it's going to be accessories. So if the barrel's not chambered right, if it's not the right twist rate, if the gas system length isn't appropriate, if the gas port diameter is not appropriate, like you're already starting behind the power curve. So your bolt carrier group, we've seen bolt carrier groups from various manufacturers drastically affect the tune on the gun. Like I'm talking about, put a micro best in there that we run, and it'll tune out on this buffer spring and this buffer. Pull it out and put another bolt carrier group in there without changing everything. And we're checking headspace, we're checking fire pin protrusion, all the normal stuff. And then all of a sudden that gun is so gassy, I could put a H3 buffer, I could put a red spring in it, and it still needs gas bled off of it. And just on a simple part like that, a lot of people pay attention to gas ports and barrels, of course, and gas port journal, OD, and all that. That's very, very important. That's step one. But I don't think some people realize how much the bolt carrier group affects it. What are their tolerances? How are they building their stuff? And so yeah, man, that's where you're spending money first. That's everything else after that's easy. So.
All right, so let's go. Let's do it this way. So I'm a new shooter. I'm trying to get into defending my home and my family. I want to start taking classes. I want to the gun I want 0 to, let's say, I'm trying to think of conversations I've had with people. Let's say 0 to 300 meters. Like, you start telling a lot of people that aren't real big shooters, they can shoot 400 or 500 meters with a 10-inch gun. They'll lose their minds. So let's
we'll get there later.
Let's stick with generic. Okay, so one, legal rifle length versus SBR, and gas system length. So, hey, I'm going to build, let's just stick with a generic one. Let's go 14.5. That's everybody likes, fuck your 13.9s, your 13.7s, okay, we're doing 14.5 pinned. I'm buying a barrel. What are barrel makers? I don't want to shit can anybody. I don't want to trash talk. What are barrel makers that you've seen that are consistently good and a good place to start?
So for us, the go-to for that guy, for those requirements, those needs, ballistic advantage. So that is, we do our high-end Bartlein barrel. We do an Excalibur barrel, which is in between like the Bartlein, and we start off with Excal blank, in between the Bartlein and in between the BA. But in terms of we don't buy a blank and cut contour chamber and make this. We use the BAs. They are the best value in a barrel, hands down. Their price point's right. Their accuracy guarantee is spot on. And it's can we build a better barrel? Yeah, but not for $250. We can't. So you go with a BA barrel. It's 14.5-inch barrel. I prefer on the 14.5s a mid-length gas system. But if you've got a carbine gas system still, it's not the end of the world, right? Like you are not behind the power curve where you're not going to get killed in the streets with a carbine gas 14.5. Like the military's doing okay with them still. Yeah. So, but yeah, preferably, right? 14.5 MIDI. Do you have a suppressor? If you do, hey, we're going to put that flash hider. We're going to put and weld that one on there. If you don't, we're going to put a dead air on there, whatever you prefer, and we'll start with that. But budget-wise, man, that's going to do 99.9% of what anybody would ever need a carbine to do. They could get an NPC standard with a 14.5-inch pin and weld, and eventually they might want to upgrade a trigger. They might want to go to an ambi charging handle and safety and put the best optic money you can buy on that thing. Other than that, spend your time on ammo and training.
So what are good? I know we're putting JP bolts in the Bruiser builds. What are you said you were using, who are you using for bolt carrier groups?
So on our enhanced guns, we run that JP 9310 bolt. Not all 9310 bolts are equal. JPs were like the original. They're the best. I love them. Had no issues with them. But for our duty guns or for our less expensive bolt carrier group, and I hate saying that because people think, oh, if it's he's saying cheap. No, I'm not saying cheap. I'm saying this is like fair price, high-end stuff. So Microbest is who OEM's bolt carrier groups that we use. So they do MPI, HP, 5.56 bolt carrier group. We run the full weight. The M16 style is our preference. The only thing we do different from them when we get their M16 bolt carrier group is on our enhanced guns, we assemble gas keys so we know that the right fasteners were used, the gas keys were assembled properly, and they're staked properly. We also DLC code them. So, but on our duty guns, I mean, you're looking at $140, $50 bolt carrier group. The only thing we do from Microbest, we take it out of the package. I prefer to use a Tack Springs 5-coil extractor spring. For the stop mod program, they use the O-ring. Good idea, worked really well. But Tack Springs does the 5-coil, so it eliminates the need for me to run an O-ring with a mil-spec 4-coil extractor spring and the buffer inside it. I just use a 5-coil with the buffer in there and call it a day. So on 223, 5.56, and 300 blackouts. I do not use that on other calibers. So, but that is the best bolt carrier group I have found for the money. So, and we've tried some others, and unfortunately, they didn't pan out, man. They just couldn't do it. So
Somebody asked, how gassy is too gassy? You want to talk about ejection pattern, or how would you describe too gassy?
yeah, so a lot of guys ask me about ejection pattern, and I believe that ejection pattern is a good rule of thumb, but it's not gospel to me. So I'm first going to look at how I want this gun to run with the most buffer, the most spring, and the least amount of gas if I have an adjustable gas block. I prefer to tune on small frame guns, I'm going to tune buffer weight first. I'm going to start with like a mil-spec carbine spring, and we're going to start adding buffer to it. Then when I need to add buffer spring to it, I will do that. And then the last thing and this is generally speaking, is I'm going to then bleed gas off. So like buffers are major changes, springs are like minor changes, and gas block adjustment at that point is like fine tuning. So, but on large frame guns, what I've found is bolt carrier groups, even low mass ones, everything's heavier on that system. It's just bigger, it's heavier, you got more mass cycling. So on that, I'm going to tune the buffer spring first. Because when I used buffers that were too heavy, and the guns got real dirty, man, it was too sluggish going back into battery. So we would go higher rate springs on those, then to heavier buffers, and then to less gas. And so the too gassy thing, what's too gassy? If the gun doesn't run, it's too gassy. If that means it doesn't run with a can on it, and you need it to run with a can on it, it's too gassy. I got a large frame gun over here a client brought in. Picked up his LSA rifle, brought in his Brand X rifle. Hey, I got this brand new rifle. It's a 308. And 308s, man, like I said earlier, they're their own animal. So, hey, this gun doesn't run when I put the can on it. Are you ever going to shoot it without the can on it? No. Cool, bring it to me. It's undersprung, it's underbuffered, it's way overgassed. So as soon as you put that suppressor on, it chokes every single time. We'll fix it. So I think that too gassy is just, yeah, if the gun's really, really gassy, but it still runs, in the long term, you're looking at increased wear on, cam pins and bolt carrier groups and fire pin retaining pins, et cetera, et cetera. But If the gun is too gassy, that means to me it doesn't function for what I need it to function for. Now you get gas blowback in your face if you're shooting a can, or like I'm a lefty, so the gas face to me is a little different than the gun being too gassy. But to me specifically, that means the gun doesn't perform what you need it to perform due to it being overgassed, undersprung, or underbuffered.
All right. So when you run Spring Coast Springs, you run any specific buffers, or you just run you get them from somebody specific?
So on our, of course, you've got like obviously the rifle buffer system, AR-15s. You got the carbine buffer system. You got the A5 system. Um, I prefer to run the mil spec uh, buffer spring, length, tube, setup, etc. for tuning purposes. Um, Vast majority of our buffers we get from RSR. It's one of our big distributors. The Spring Coast Springs. I've run across some buffer companies. A lot. You got to be really careful now because there's so much AR stuff that's made in Taiwan on the cheap side, or overseas, I should say. In particular. So I've seen like really bad quality aluminum buffers. They're not 70-75. The roll pins suck. Stuff starts splitting. I've seen this on like stuff clients have brought in and we fixed up. Um, but man, it's just the thing now, man. The good thing about the industry now is there's a lot of stuff out there. The bad thing is not all of it's good, right? So how do you know? And unless you go try it out yourself, or the guy that's actually making it or building it. So I really like the Spring Coast Springs because they give us. I know that they're color coded. So like a white spring is a mil spec rate spring. A blue spring is a little heavier, a red spring is even heavier, etc. So like if I open up a gun and it's not color coded like that, I have no idea where that spring came from. And because I don't know the guy that made it, it could have been out of a Dodge for all I know. Like nobody knows. And man, if you call down to Tax Springs and talk to Alan, that guy will talk to you he talks to me more about springs, and I really love to know about this stuff. And then eventually I'm just like, I'm sorry, man. I just don't have the IQ to keep up, man. He is so freaking smart about that stuff and passionate, and it's awesome. Like that's the kind of support we have. Like those are the companies we want to deal with. But I mean, they're rocket scientists that are making springs for guns, and they know exactly what they're doing. They do it. So I never worry about consistency from them or quality from them. I know that if I use that spring, I'm getting the same rate white mil spec spring today as the same one, the first one I bought 10 years ago. Adjustable gas blocks. We've used pretty much every adjustable gas block out there. We prefer the superlative arms now. I like them because they're a little less prone to carboning up. They still will a little. You got to maintain them. But they have a good mechanical retention, so positive adjustments every quarter turn. They bleed the gas out the front. That's the best thing I know about there. And man, if there's something better, let me know. That's something we're always looking at. But been very happy with those. And the consistency, sticking with the same spring. I fixed a lot of guys' guns with springs. I was up at Sun Devil one day. This was a long time ago now. But they had a customer bring a gun in, or a local gunsmith would bring them guns when they had big trouble. And the gun wouldn't run. And this was during 2010 probably. So end of 09, early 2010. So like after kind of that first big Obama gun scare, and parts were hard to get, and people were just getting whatever they could from whoever they could, right? So they had this gun that wouldn't run, and he started to pull the bolt carrier apart, like pull the gas key off and start checking stuff there. And I was like, hey man, I told their guy, I was like, just put a known buffer spring in there works. Just put one in there, try it first. And he did, because David was like, what's that got to do with it? I said, just try it. And he did, and the freaking gun ran. Well, I only know that because I had the exact same thing happen to me like 2 months prior. And I chased it, and I chased a buffer spring out, and all of a sudden it works. And I'm like, holy crap. And then I really started getting into the weeds on, what is the wire I did, what's it made out of, and who's making it, how many compression cycles, and what makes the spring wear, and down that road. And it's one of those things, man, I never in a million years, I'd have lost that bet every time. I just like, it's not a buffer spring. And it's just little things like that, man, that help us be consistent and improve. And if we change something, we know why it did what it did. And like those are the vendors that, man, they're as much a part of LSA as anything else, man. Like, I don't know where I'd go get those buffer springs from right now. Sprinko said, "Nah, we're not doing this anymore." No idea. We'll figure it out, but man, good stuff.
So you were talking about longevity, and we're talking about springs, and I think it's a good segue into what are things that somebody who's a serious shooter, what is the maintenance intervals that you've seen and things that people should watch for to, springs are cheap in the relative scheme of things. It's kind of like a buffer spring, or not a buffer spring, a recoil spring in a pistol. People go like, well, I've got 25,000 rounds in my Glock and I haven't changed the spring ever. And it's like, well, you change the spring out. People are like, oh my God, this gun runs so much better now.
Yep.
It's like, well, there's a difference between a gun running and a gun doing what it's supposed to. So what do you think is a regular service interval for all the wear items in an AR?
So now different barrels, we'll start kind of at the front and work our way back.
Yep.
Melonided barrels, cold hammer forged barrels, chrome line barrels versus straight up stainless barrels. Barrels are like brake pads and tires. They're eventually going to wear out. That service life is somewhat dependent on how they're made and what they're made out of. A stainless steel barrel is typically going to wear out quicker than a cold hammer forged, chrome line, or melonided barrel. Also, your schedule of fire. So a guy that heats his gun up, he shoots his gun, gets it hot, and lets it completely cool, and then does that again, is going to have less barrel wear than a guy that runs his gun like a machine gun, gets it hot, keeps running it while it's hot. That's going to exacerbate throat erosion, of course. So I like to, it's barrel, man, the barrels is so hard to say because it depends on how they've been treated, But if the velocity loss is substantial enough and the accuracy degradation is beyond what is acceptable to you, you get a new barrel. So I've seen that between 10,000 rounds. I've seen it to 50,000 rounds. But going back from there, if I replace a barrel, I replace the bolt. I replace the cam pin, the firing pin. Usually I don't see any issues with bolt carriers, but as a rule of thumb, I'm going to replace a bolt when I replace a barrel. Even if the bolt looks good, hey, if it went that long on that barrel, man, it was a good run. Keep it as a spare or something and just go ahead and preventatively replace it. Trigger spring, hammer spring, man, I've seen 3,000 to 5,000 rounds out of those. I've seen some go more, but I think just as a rule of thumb, man, 3,000 to 5,000 on that stuff. If you've ever ran a gun until you've wore out a barrel and you've never replaced any other spring on the gun, dude, spend the $50 and just replace them. Gas rings, depending on caliber, gas system length, and how gassy they are, or how oversized the port is. I've seen some of those go out in 1,000 rounds. I've seen some of them go out and you can probably still run them after several thousand rounds. Extractor springs. One of the neat things about the Springco springs, and I had been running for a little bit, and I was doing some Googling, and I ran across an article Mike Pannone did, and I didn't realize he had ran their stuff when he was doing I think it was asymmetrical, or one of the projects he was on, and he had this unreal amount of rounds through their buffer spring, 100,000 plus or something. They had an extractor spring with 50 or 100,000 rounds on it. It was still going, And I thought that was deep because I don't have the capability to do. I can't go shoot 100,000 rounds a year. On a spring, go check it out. So it was really, really valuable to me to kind of see the white paper on that and okay, I'm going down this road and this is worth continuing this investment in this product for this time and stuff. It's been really valuable to me, to know that that's long-term and really good and should be successful for me as well. I think get asked like, hey, what spare parts should I have, for my AR? I keep a bolt, a firing pin, and a firing pin retaining pin in my grip. I keep a little vial of oil. Um, I keep I've never used it, but I still keep a stuck shell case removal tool in my buttstock. Um, I think you should keep an extra like an assortment of buffers and springs. Keep that with you don't need it on you, right? But like keep it at home. Gas rings, of course, but I keep an extra bolt. So if I want to replace the gas rings on my current bolt, I can just rob them off that, or I can just swap the bolt entirely. And trigger and hammer spring, uh, extractor spring, a couple of selector / ejector springs. That covers your bases on the springs, really.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of that. Half that stuff you can keep in the gun. If anything else breaks on the rifle, it's catastrophic. You're not fixing it in the middle of the fight, right? So there's just some things that aren't going to be user level when they're needed. So
It was funny. We'd run land warfare, and we'd tell all the 60 gunners to they all had a spare bolt. They all had some spare parts, and it's crazy to watch somebody in the middle of an IAD or a reaction to contact. You're watching a 60 gunner, and he's running with his gun, and he's got the feed tray open, and he's holding a bolt in one hand, and there's a spring flopping around, and he lays back down, and he reassembles the gun, throws the belt back in, and gets back to work. And so people are like, "You wouldn't do that." It's like, the fuck you wouldn't.
If you know how,
bitch. Like,
you
it's
show.
work.
Yep.
Especially those big belt feds when we were working, like those things are a lifeline of a platoon, especially when you got 10 or 12 guys, or 16 guys. Those belt feds need to run because that's the biggest firepower you got besides the CAS overhead. So no, that's good. That's good stuff. If somebody's building a gun, what are some critical tools that you think people overlook? I think, everybody gets an action wrench or are headspace gauges required? What are some things that people really should have if they're gonna partake in building their own gun?
Man, the first couple of things, and we see guys, they're like, oh, I don't need to buy that, and then their shit, it works, but it's really jacked up. And that's get a good upper receiver vice block and a good lower receiver vice block. You will use the heck out of those, man. Whether you're working on the gun or whether you're just cleaning the gun, you need to just stick the gun somewhere and get out of the way, like lower receiver vice block, upper receiver vice block. Step one. Other big thing we see, and this is more of an attention to detail thing, but also they'll screw stuff up. Go to Brownells and get a roll pin starter punch kit and a roll pin punch kit. Don't try and use a pair of pliers and your buddy's flashlight and the wrong. You just end up messing stuff up. And those little pin springs, you guys that call me all the time. Hey, I lost this detent, right? The buffer retainer detent, man. You hadn't lost one of those, right? But you get the roll pin punches, the starter punches, the vice blocks, and that just makes your life so much simpler. There's some tools now for doing like pivot pin detent installation. Those are cheap and easy. They really make life simpler. Can you get by without it? Sure. But why if you don't have to? Of course, a good armor's wrench. The headspace gauges, I believe in. Every gun gets headspaced. Any gun we touch gets headspaced. We also check the firing pin protrusion. There's a minimum and a maximum on like your 5.56 for how much the firing pin should protrude through the bolt face. So rarely, the neat thing about like 223 5.56 guns is there's like 7 thousandths, I think, of difference between a go gauge and a no-go gauge. So the tolerance that a manufacturer has to make a bolt within and thus subsequently a barrel within is 7 thousandths of an inch, okay? So for the most part, most manufacturers are very, very close to each other and they're within spec. And that's why most of the time you can get by with swapping out a 223 bolt with another 223 and not checking headspace, and it's usually okay. most of the time. However, like we don't chance most of the time, so we're going to check them all. And but what's neat is we check everything, and out of the last probably 200 guns that we've headspaced or checked headspace on, like maybe one or two of them had to get another bolt, to change that. So it's good to know things like that. Just have some data on it. Other calibers, every caliber has different headspace dimensions. So like your 308's greater. But yeah, I think I would buy headspace gauges are not that expensive, and it is a critical thing when you put a gun together and you've got an unknown bolt and an unknown barrel. You should just check it. It's easy to do, man. That's like if you get mud in your barrel, like stop and clean that crap out, right? Same thing with headspace gauges. Like I look at it no different. It's mandatory. So
Yeah.
it's important. And some other stuff. Being able to mount your own optic, like having a good leveling kit or something like the Wheeler. They got the torque wrenches, the fat wrenches. We use that stuff every day.
Fix It sticks. I like Fix It sticks.
Fix It sticks. Yes, those things are golden, man. The oh man, cleaning equipment, a bore guide, a one-piece rod, some shop swabs, some Q-tips, some good bore solvent, and some good oil and degreaser. That stuff just makes life so simple. I've got a video. I've been asked to do this since I've been cleaning guns, and I've told so many people and shown them, and I thought like I just need to do a video. So like, oh, how do you do it? It's not special. It's just how I do it. And it's relatively quick, and there's like different versions of cleaning. There's like keep the gun running clean. There's, hey, we need to take this in and get it fixed, and we don't want to be that guy with a dirty gun, white glove, right? So we got some stuff like that we're adding out to the social media and the website as well, just kind of resources. But
I think I brought this up on Mike's white paper. I think something that I want to put out there that people need to realize is that people like Mike or some of these guys, I mean, I've done it a couple times. They're paid and expected, and it's part of their relationship with the company to test these guns. And so it's their job to take a BCM, a B&T, a Lone Star, or whatever, and run. Or Pat Rogers did this and had a gun with I don't know how many thousands of rounds.
Yeah, the 13 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
BCM.
Without cleaning it. And that doesn't mean that that's what you should do. And the reason why I say that is that these relationships are built with a company. If I have a relationship with Andrew here and I have a gun and he wants me to take a Lone Star and run it until it chokes. Well, that's great. But that's doing it so that he can say that our guns have done that. It's not me recommending or Andrew recommending that's what you should do with your gun. I make this comparison with cars. It's like, well, if you don't change the oil in your car, will it keep running past 3,000 miles? Yes. Talk to almost any teenage girl who doesn't have a dad that makes her change her oil. She probably has 10 or 15,000 rounds 10 or 15,000 miles without an oil change. It doesn't mean it's good for the mechanical aspect of that vehicle, much less your gun is the same way, and you're causing excess wear and damage on that gun. Now, can it? Yes. But if you've spent your hard-earned money on that gun and you want that piece of equipment to run in all of the worst environments, take the 5 minutes when you've put some rounds through that gun and fucking clean it. I mean, we took our Mark 18s and, when you're doing 10 or 15 hour days and you're shooting all day and you're tired and you don't want to do it, guys would still at least pull a bore snake through it, wipe the bolt down, take some air, blow the gun off, re-oil it back up, put it back together every day. Like, could we have not and just kept spraying oil on it and work? Some guys did, but I think that really goes to show the professionalism of the person using the gun. Now, do you need to white glove it? No, but I don't see why some people go like, I have this Glock or this Staccato or this AR and I have 6,000, 10,000, 15,000 rounds and I haven't cleaned it yet. I don't see that as a badge of honor. And I don't see it as some sign that you're some super badass. I really see it as professional neglect, um, of something that you're supposed to set the example of, or you're wasting your fucking money and you're putting undue wear on something that you spent. Now it's yours. Do as you wish. And if and when in the unlikely event, God help you if you ever have to use that in a defensive scenario, I hope to God it fucking works for you. But it's kind of like when I took scopes overseas. If I want the best option I have to win any situation, whether it's a competition or it's a life or death situation, I don't want to have to. I want to have that gun set up the best I can to solve that problem. And having a dirty gun when you start is not setting yourself up.
No, put the odds in your favor. Like, we've run guns like that. It's like, hey, how long can we run this? Well, that's a specific purpose. I want to know kind of like what worst case expectation is, right? But there's no like, and I know guys like that, man. It's like a badge of honor for them. And unless you're doing like destructive longevity testing for somebody or yourself just to know on one, that's good. But man, like that probably shouldn't be your go-to gun. Like, God forbid, you're like, man, I got 12,000 rounds through this thing. Well, you got to go run 100 through it, and that's when it decides to choke, right? Like, that would be a really shitty thing to have to explain to my family, right? Like, why I couldn't put a little oil on my gun or keep it clean. So, yeah, that has its purpose, but just in general stewardship and maintenance, like, take care of your stuff, take care of it, man.
I think
It's life support equipment.
And I think anybody who's law enforcement who's watching this now or watching it down the road, I think everybody knows that guy, right? It's that guy who, whether you're into cars, you're into motorcycles, you're into boats, you're into, everybody knows that guy, girl, whatever, who's very, like, I'm not a gun guy. I just know what sound it makes when it goes boom. And their gun's garbage and it's dirty and it's nasty. And those people exist in law enforcement. They exist in SOF. They exist in every infantry platoons. They exist. There's Marines like that, even though drill sergeants, beat it into them to clean those suckers. They fucking exist. And I would venture to say that 90% of the time that is a direct correlation to also how they conduct themselves in life, conduct themselves operationally, conduct themselves like that lack of professionalism translates into other parts of their life. Now, are there people out there who just don't clean guns, but they're super locked on? There are the exceptions. I'm just saying that's an exception. And I would be willing to put money that the same people who do that historically show that same laziness in other aspects of their lives. And that can go into, whether we're in our platoons, the guy's physical fitness, the guy's professionalism, the guy's, how much he takes care of his gear, how much he looks out for other people. Well, he's a fucking savage. Well, that's great. But I'd rather have a platoon full of professionals. And there's a difference. There's professional savages and there's just fucking dirty savages. I don't know. Maybe that's just fucking me. Who knows?
No, like, dude, look, the guy that doesn't put his shopping cart basket back probably has a dirty fucking gun. It's just what it is. Doesn't park right. Doesn't have any common courtesy for other people. Nah, dirty gun. Probably really close to not running. So,
but good shit, man. So if you guys, I won't keep it too much longer. We've been talking now for almost 2 hours.
Have we really?
Guys,
holy shit!
Almost 8 o'clock. Or
I think I talked for like an hour and 50 minutes. You're just like, man, shut up so I can talk, dude. Sorry.
No, dude. Everybody comes to my page gets to hear me all the time.
I don't get out much, man. I get excited about this.
So you guys, if you guys are on my page, you guys go follow Lone Star Armory. Andrew's good fucking mug. I honor you, my friend. I appreciate you jumping on with me. If you guys from his page and want to stick around, follow me and JR. There'll be more coming from both of us. And if you guys want to buy a Bruiser, awesome. I know Andrew's gonna Paratus, talk all you want. I just got here. Um, I'm gonna post this on my page. So if you guys want to listen to the whole hour and 50 minutes of it, it's gonna be up. Andrew, my friend, it's always a pleasure. And just so you guys know, Andrew has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of my guns right now. 2 of them are his. 3 of them are guns I'm having him go through because he's the man with the magic fingers. And I trust him with my guns. And so for what that's worth, I appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Joe. Anytime anybody entrusts me with a gun, it means a lot to me. So, man, we just take care of you, do the right thing, and get you some good tools back so you can put them to use. Don't be that guy that sends me back freaking nice new looking guns, dude. Don't do it. Don't do it. Run them.
That's
Run
kind of
them.
the point. Get all these things dialed so I can beat the shit out of them.
And it's like it's 8 o'clock your time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 10 o'clock where I'm at. So yeah, it's dark now, man.
I'm gonna go pour some more bourbon. Andrew, my friend. Till next time, you guys. I'm Joe
Thank
with
you,
Bruiser
Joe.
Industries. We'll catch you next time.
All right, see y'all guys soon.